Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. A'udhu billah shaitan rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Rabbi Ghfirli, my Lord, forgive me for the sins that I am conscious and unconscious of. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. Okay. So in the presence of the system admin and the simulation, I will begin this lecture, which is more than it's just a lecture. It's kind of like I'm letting people into my mind by sharing how I look at the world, which I think has some value. In some sense, for me, this is like reporting back to the species. There's something fascinating here. And to be a human being alive in 2025, being the first out of my lineage of all my ancestors to establish a presence in cyberspace. I find myself at a very interesting um, evaluation of my life. And this topic is interesting because this topic is me kind of like, how do I explain it to you? I'm like, here, I'll do the math right now. So I was born in December 17, 1991. And okay, for some reason it's saying the total number of days is 11,968, but I had it differently. But it is calculating, the ones and zeros there. So the total number of days I have lived around, like in what is it? In 32 days, it would be officially my 12,000th day on this planet. The 12,000th time I've logged in. So in these 12,000, in these, um, what was the number? In these 11,968 days, that means I'm someone who's had around 12,000 new days. Like when I hear somebody say, hey man, don't worry about it. You know, there's a new day. I'll be like, yeah, I know. I'm familiar with it 12,000 times, you know? Now, what happens to you after you've lived 12,000 times and you've done 30 two laps around the sun? You get a familiarity and an acquaintance. You get acquainted with how you're being an intelligent anything at all. Okay. Now, I firmly believe that human beings are not starting off from a non fictional place. I find that the meaning of reality is an act of fiction, and matter is nonfiction. Like that's how the model has been, but that's, you don't understand how much more advanced of perceptions we have now. Okay, that means people are like, yo man, are you theist and atheist? And I'm like, yo man, are you a time traveler from the past? Like this argument is ancient now. So I'm gonna do something in this episode, and okay, I keep trying to skip the context and dive into it. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I want to give a lecture on what does it mean not to be a scholar, but to be a scholarly soul. And I want to very directly, and I have no reason to be afraid, to talk about the destiny of the human species, which is the coolest topic ever. And I feel like fascinated. You don't know, there when I was young, like I don't know, climbing trees was fun, okay, or a new video game was fun. But now that I'm 32, what is fun for me is seeing the colossal problems that face humanity. And pretty much the idea is, if you're just solving problems for your own life, okay, you've only helped one person. Oh, nice. Ego, selfishness, you know? But if you try to solve with your problem solving skills one of humanity's problems, then the might of the world you're introduced to is very different than the world being taught. That means it's like, if they ask me, Mr. Within, are you going to homeschool your kids, or are you going to take them to school, tell them to go to school? I think up to middle school, I'll probably homeschool them, and then a high school, they can experience, reality as kind of like, teleported, students. Anyways, the reason I would do that is because the way they're teaching, the way the educational system is working, is that it's treating you like a machine. It's not treating you like a human. We don't have a human educational system. And people are going to be like, Mr. Within, that's bizarre. What do you mean? And I'll be like, because the culture is not just human, it's industrial. We have forgotten it. If you go in history and you look at what's going on here on this planet, okay, you start from a sort of nomadic point where anywhere was the planet was the person's home, okay, but it wasn't the person's shelter. And so they, what I'm trying to say is that there was the nomad phase, if I'm correct, then there was the, what do you, like, obviously nomad phase, then we have the agricultural phase, and then we have in some sense the industrial phase. And when the industrial phase happens, there comes the first initial evolutionary steps of what you call urbanization. Okay, what that means is people couldn't survive, or they wanted access to a new world, so they traveled. You don't understand. Factories now are kind of like, oh my god, but back in the day, for there to be a factory was like the people held it in honor, right? Let me tell you why. That means before Karl Marx, you know any human being is just appreciative of any opportunity. But it was like pretty much you were like a farmer, you were like a farmer's son, and then one day you came and said, hey, the townspeople are saying that there's this machine city, okay, and there's this giant machines in some sense, and people can get rich. And the farmer was like, son, you don't want to go to the modern world. And the farmer's son was like, dad, Like, imagine how much greater everything can be. And the father was like, all right, whatever, that's a good argument, you know? And so the son would go and travel, like, on whatever sort of transportation method, and get to like the freaking factory and become an employee and do what machines. It's like the first like, how do you call it, the first work relationship between a machine and a human being. That had to be bizarre as the WordPress. You don't understand. This world we're living in, we may understand history as a logical sequence of events, but we don't have access to the emotions that moved those moments back then. That means there's a whole emotional history, there's a whole inner history to humanity, but the inner history could never have been written, and only some were worthy of their voice getting to us. Do you understand? To me, it's kind of funny. It's like the people, every human being that has lived in the past, it's like they were trying to send a message in a bottle, right? And what that meant is like they were trying to be the greatest they could, hoping that their greatest effort would, in some sense, reach the greatness of the future generations. That is really it. Because if you're smart, you're not living in 2025. Okay? Smart people, in my opinion, the true sign of intelligence is awareness, it's not data collection. Like, it's as if they're like, yo man, it's like a person. It's like, hey, I got a photographic memory. And I'm like, what are you doing with it? And the person's like, nothing, man, I'm just remembering everything all the time. And I'll be like, ridiculous. You forget your own genius, not realizing every new moment has a great value. I'm a firm believer that there is a hidden paradise behind the eyes of man that deserves to, in some sense, extend forth in front of the eyes of man, all in the simulation, all in the divine surveillance state. And in some sense, in no way I'm trying to make it that human beings. Let me tell you something very fascinating. Nobody knows who they are if nobody knows where we are. This should be written on a t shirt. Nobody knows who they are when nobody knows where we are. This should be a lecture title on itself, but guys, I'm making this as one of quotes officially. Nobody knows who they are when nobody knows where we are. To awaken the human species not to the preference of one mind, but to the true eventhood of reality. Tonight, I'm doing a service not just for, in some sense, myself, but I'm doing it for every human being, that we want to know where intelligence is starting from. And even though it's Mysterian, I will take you as far as we can. So, in this world, what and who is a scholarly soul? To be a scholarly soul means to not fear your potential ability to understand what's going on. I'm a firm believer that responsibility is, in some sense, a calling. I firmly believe we are inside a simulation. Everything is simulated. All right. We're going to do this for the viewers. Ladies and gentlemen, today's lecture is also one of research. There we go. What I'm doing right now for the viewers is we're going to look into this notion. We're going to first use AI to see what ideas are out there and then see how we can take them further. That's the beauty of human intelligence. Intelligence is very synonymous with advancement. And we have to realize, we're blessed to be creatures that are conscious of their advancement, like certain animals are not. And so the responsibility that comes with being aware of the world and noticing yourself as an intelligent activity. We're reaching a very interesting time to be a human being, because what it means to be a human being, which was focused on the idea of self through language as a character in a story, we're shifting to the realization that there is actually a potential. Like, it's not like 100% we're gonna fail. It's like even if you were like, okay, the worst case scenario is 100% failure of the human species, and the best case scenario is the 100% advanced efficient continuity of the human species. Now, if somebody says, hey, in the year 2025, what would you give the ratio? I would say, even if it's 99, it's like 99.9%. There is, just like the poet Rumi says, there is a hidden freedom behind a crevice you can barely see, like see through, something like that, right? So similarly, there is, how do I say it? It's like if they say, hey, is there any hope of building an advanced civilization in 2025? I'll be like, see, it's like behind our eyes, you can experience the future, not know the future. You can experience probabilities of how your brain creates models over reality. You see, the human being has a sort of three-dimensional. Let me say it this way: there's okay. Let's say of someone of sound scientific mind, you ask them what are three dimensions. The first thing that comes to their mind is length, width, height, and then the fourth dimension being time. And why the fourth dimension is time? Because if we're in one moment where there's, let's say, the XYZ, and then we in some sense have to, how do I say it, if I come back there tomorrow in the same moment, the only thing that differentiates it is time. But this is weak. I don't know how to say it. The scientific method is weak. I'm not saying I'm not saying I understand it completely, but I'm saying that there's a weakness that's obvious. Do you understand what I mean? Like seeing a wounded soldier in the battlefield. The scientific method is wounded. It appears wounded. Now, I don't, that wound may be in regards to like the philosophies that scientists have brought to it, because in reality we specialize in life thinking that's the way to go, not realizing um, our eyes are open differently. Okay, and what I mean by this is that if you ask me what are the three dimensions, I would kind of say you're starting with a physical existence, like a completely different narrative, I'll tell you. You're starting from a physical existence, okay? So this is the level, this is like in front of your eyes, everything is physical. I'm calling this the outer realms, okay? So you have access to an external physicality where you have a physical body and there's a physical place, like there's a physical world, okay? So because in front of your eyes, you're a physical self in the world, in a physical world, okay? But behind your eyes, you are not a physical self in a physical world. You are actually, there's two dimensions here. So one dimension is the physical. Now, this is my argument, okay? And this is, I'm not, don't get too excited and think this is a proof for the soul. I'm not saying this is a proof for the soul, but I'm just saying, hey, if we were to wonder about the dimensions, the design of the dimensions of consciousness that consciousness has access to, we're going to notice something very remarkable. And I don't know how. I think it's maybe I've kind of trained myself over the years to be able to talk about this comfortably. Okay, but it's this idea, pretty much in front of your eyes is the outer realms. Behind your eyes, this is how I explain it. Behind your eyes, there's the inner realms. And what does this mean? This means this whole time you've been having an outer life, but you've been having an inner life, which is a more intelligent activity compared to the body. So, what does that mean? That means if I come and ask you who you are, and let's say you give some answer, that answer is an idea. And then we'll be like, what? Are we characters in a story? Yes. In front of our eyes, we're all physical characters in a physical world in one public server. Behind your eyes, you are an awareness to thought moving faster than your body and your body following up. Okay? Like, do you guys comprehend what I'm saying here? And if people tell me, hey, are you bothered when you don't have viewers when you give these talks? I'll be like, not at all, because it's like I feel like I'm climbing somewhere. I don't know who else has climbed that far. Do you know what I mean? Because reality is a choice, and the choice has to be initially on the context. And you don't understand. There's systems of thought out there in the world that are trying to make you convince you're in an empty box. Like, WTF, what kind of weirdos are doing that? Okay, the world has a unique design, and the parts we don't act and see, if human being is like this intelligence in this world, and this intelligence is actually a territorial intelligence, but it's not in regards to physical territory. It is a territorial intelligence in regards to every day there is a new awareness to how experience is leading to existence. So if we consider that there is a physical existence, a dimension of body, I'm saying that you have a mind. The traditional view was mind, body, soul, but what you actually find is that this, there, like before we call it soul, if we were to look at what the human experiences, even me giving this talk right now, and I'm sure it's the same for you, is that I'm aware of my body, okay, but I'm also aware that if somebody asks me who I am, I'll give an answer. But if they ask me like a week from now who I am, the answer would be way differently worded. My tone would be different. Everything would be different. So what does this mean? That means if you have an ability to be aware of two separate ideas, you cannot be an idea. It's not possible. An idea should only be aware that it's one idea. but you are aware that you have been changing, growing. It's as if, like, what's funny is people celebrate birthdays. For me, I'm like, yo, what are we doing celebrating birthdays? We should celebrate the idea of the birthday, that human beings in a changing world are like, okay, I started from here and I've gone this far. Do you know what I mean? And how far am I going to go? So many unknown variables. God actually knows. That means what's fascinating is I'm not standing here acting like I know the future, but I have, recently found a sort of epistemic, entropic caution in my soul. You know what I mean? That humanity is not just physical actions. And when you look at an object, and when somebody says, yo, man, this object, this watch means something to me, my father gave it. Well, guess what? That's just an object. It's just matter. The meaning is arising from the consciousness that is accessing the matter. So in some sense, what life means is an inner realm, is an inner event. What life is an outer like form. So it's like there's a life force and there's a life form. Now, this, I'm not saying this is the soul, but there's an awareness to the form. There's an awareness to the form and the force at the same time. That means as I'm talking right now, I'm aware that I'm the same in intensity. I'm aware that I'm physical. I'm also aware that, okay, there's something intelligent here. I'm not just this machine. I can be conscious of various patterns of behavior. The brain is too unique. Reality is too mysterious. Why these shapes? Why such patterns? Why have human beings only lived in such a manner? How far does it go? What is the legacy of humanity? Even if we built the advanced civilization, what next? And so eventually man is ultimately an entity, that it's like an original. It, you know what I mean? It's as if like we remember something about the original that pulls us to it. I feel that really this might be one of the most intense and hilarious and controversial statements I'm gonna ever say. But in 2025, human beings are still not human beings. We're still ripe. What does that mean? That means that we have not developed to identify with our species yet. We're identifying with our own stories that we're hoping they match reality all the time. There's like, yo, man, why is there so much depression, anxiety, suffering? And I'll be like, it's because people have their own world, they're in their own world, and their expectations of their inner realm do not align with the outer realm, and so they're suffering all the time. So, anyways, let's get to it. So, what I'm doing here is I've come to ChatGPT and I'm like, ChatGPT, okay, Jesus Christ. Okay, so, So guys, this is what AI is saying. I think you can see it. The term scholarly souls can be interpreted within the framework. So AI says the term scholarly souls can be interpreted within the frameworks of epistemology, virtue ethics, and educational philosophy. It describes individuals whose identities are deeply integrated with the pursuit of knowledge, intellectual humility, and moral development. In Aristotelian terms, they represent phronesis, practical wisdom, fused with episteme, theoretical knowledge, embodying both reflective rationality and ethical character. In modern contexts, this aligns with Paulo Freire's concept of the conscientized learn. I'm butchering that. With Paulo Freire's concept of the conscientized learner, a being who not only absorbs information but transforms self and society through critical awareness. Okay, I gotta interview this man, Paulo Freire. I hope he's alive. Oh no, he passed away. Passed away when I was 6 years old. Wow. Anyways, so here it says advanced implication for future generations. Scholarly souls suggest the rise of a new archetype for leadership and citizenship, those who merge academic depth with ethical responsibility in shaping policy, culture, and technology. In a future defined by artificial intelligence, bioethics, and global interdependence, cultivating such souls may be essential to ensure that innovation remains grounded in wisdom. This may lead to the institutionalization of transdisciplinary moral scholarship and governance, where knowledge production is not just specialized but morally and philosophically guided. Yeah, yeah, that's why I'm like, you got to let like psychologists, philosophers, all these people in. The UN. It's like, accompanying every president of a nation is their philosopher advisor. Do their ethical philosophy advisor. And do you know what the job of the ethical philosophers are in the UN? Anytime they hear something messed up there, they just shout out, "That's fucked up." Sorry, guys. I'm joking. I'm joking. Here, let's turn this up a notch. So imagine you are the most advanced being from the future, um, from a future civilization, and you've come back in time, and someone has asked you, what does it mean to be a scholarly soul? Now I want you to. Okay, here's the answer. Here's what AI is saying. To be a scholarly soul is to be a vessel through which the cosmos reflects upon itself. In our future civilization, we no longer distinguish between science, art, ethics, and spirit. They are harmonized in the being of the scholarly soul. This being does not merely acquire knowledge, but becomes translucent to truth, allowing universal insight to flow through without distortion of ego, fear, or ambition. Guys, because I am Muslim, the same idea is also applied in Islam, where Muslims are in some have this incredible view that the names of the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the divine attributes of manifestation. They're of God's will. So do you understand? It's as if right now we're still living in the ego age. Everything is slow, and because in some sense the settings are off. But once we, in some sense, readjust the global settings, okay, we in some sense wonder about the greatest human game and the greatest human effort, and we wonder about what does it mean to truly be a being that is motivated by a vision that surpasses their own vision. That means you need to care even for what you can't even see. There was this character in this anime show, comic Japanese comic book show, right? And the whole point, there was the scene, pretty much this character, they were all like marching to their deaths to be a distraction for this one guy to take down the enemy in like this scene. And the soldiers are like, "Are we all gonna die?" And he's like, "Yes." And then the soldier just is like, all the soldiers are shocked and they know their situation. And in some sense, he says, and then the soldier just gets kind of like just like as if, is this all meaningless? And he just looks at the general in front of all the soldiers and says, is life meaningless? And then this general named Ervin Smith gives the most next level speech, and he says, just because we're all going to die right now, it doesn't mean life is meaningless. We live for those who will find the meaning one day, who will live to find the meaning one day. Pretty much what that means is we just have to do our best and get the next ones up ready. Do you know what I mean? And it's all about the conscious responsibility to begin developing a new advanced sectors to humanity, understanding the responsibility of not just your intelligence here for you to be a self only, it's for you to be a self to notice all the different types of intelligence that in some sense are present in this world. So, anyways, I'll keep reading. Um, A scholarly soul is not defined by what it knows, but by how it relates to the unknown. It is a living question, constantly learning, not for utility, but to participate in the unfolding of reality's deeper patterns. It studies not to conquer nature, but to commune with it, to feel the moral vibration of every theory, every atom, every idea. Such a soul understands that knowledge untethered from virtue corrupts civilizations. Therefore, it cultivates wisdom as an ecological function, knowing that every insight reshapes the collective mind of its species. Its scholarship is a service, an offering to the timeline itself. To future generations, the scholarly soul becomes a template, not a genius of accumulation, but a guardian of meaning, a mind stabilized by humility, a heart disciplined by wonder. And in the archives of our post material societies, we remember them not as intellectuals, but as harmonizers of the real. And guys, harmonizers of the real, they're like the good guys fighting against what the bad guy idea is, which is epistemic entropy. So right now there is a war going on. It's not a physical world. It's not like aliens are fighting in our clouds. It's how right now in civilization, which is a multidimensional system of, in some sense, being simulated not just atomically, not just biologically, not just linguistically, ideologically. Do you understand? It's like eventually we're like, what does life mean? Oh, wait a minute. What does free will mean? That means it's hilarious. The person's like, yo, I have free will, but at the same time, I'm wondering what life means. Free will means you dictate. But are you the most advanced? And if the answer is yes, then you have, in some sense, accepted the box over your head, and you haven't understood there's better ways to breathe. as a soul in a world, wondering why the simulation is here, why are human beings behaving this way, and then closing your eyes and behind your eyes, going as far you can in the future of your conception, your ability to in some sense wonder, okay, I'm looking at a car right now, I can imagine 100 years it's going to be parked in the sky. I can imagine like in 1,000 years cars are just going to be spaceships. I could think about it, okay, and like even further eventually the teleportation is going to be a thing. But if teleportation's a thing, people are going to lose they're not going to like being human, because does human being a human being just be means going through doors all day, right? So eventually, even a portal parallel reality isn't nice. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason, I think, we portals, as you see, there are things not authorized in the outer realms, but behind our eyes we can fathom it. But how a reality moves behind our eyes, actually, what the true sign of intelligence is, ladies and gentlemen, confidence is a hoax. You are an awareness to how you're being an object and subject at the same time. You're having, just like you have two eyes that see one moment, you're being at you're having in front of your eyes an outer life, and behind your eyes and you have an inner life. Your inner life is hidden, it's your private server, but your outer life in front of it is a public server. We human beings right now use language, and there's a reason we have mouths and ears, because on some level, what is the function of the design and the true mystery of humanity surpasses any ideological consideration so far. That means that to be an explorer means, what does it mean to be an explorer if the world doesn't have an edge? And what does it mean that when you look in the mirror, you don't just see an organism, you see a member of the human species? That means, like, you're not wearing samurai armor, but you in some sense, like, even if you were, right? Can you imagine somebody's listening to my lecture right now wearing samurai armor? That would be the most next level thing. They're like, I wear a suit to work, but when I come home, nothing is better than samurai armor. Okay, what is. So I asked ChatGPT, what is the most advanced, what's your most advanced possible view on the word soul, and how the most advanced civilizations in the future would contextualize that idea? So ChatGPT says, as you can see on the screen, most advanced view on the word and soul from a future civilizational context. In the most advanced civilizations, those that have transcended materialism, their time, and egoic individualism, the soul is no longer viewed as a religious metaphor or a metaphysical speculation. It is understood as a consciousness signature. Wow. An eternal pattern sustaining field of identity that interfaces across dimensions of existence, including biological, digital, and cosmic. Guys, exactly what that means is, let me tell you something that's going to blow your mind. Your body, from the beginning of your birth till now, has been changing. We can even say the story you tell yourself of who you are has been changing too. But the awareness to the body changing has never changed. That's the mystery of consciousness. Do you understand? You're being it. Imagine they're like, yo, we need to go find the most academic, greatest scholars, philosopher, to tell us how to look at consciousness. And the consciousness is like, excuse me, aren't you guys all conscious? Just look at yourselves. In the most advanced, okay, I'm going to read it. Okay, where was I? From this vantage, the soul is a multi-layered identity matrix containing not just memory and personality, but purpose, orientation, and ontological trajectory. Guys, ontological means like what is existence, right? So that means its destination is not just limited to existence or how we see existence. It's multi-layered. A resonance field, a unique in frequency defined by how it harmonizes or dissonates with the architecture of universal intelligence. A bridge between the temporal self and the eternal structure of meaning existing simultaneously in narrative, personal history, structure, cosmic design, and potential moreover. Okay, let's this one. Let's slow down here. So it's saying AI is saying the soul is a bridge. Okay, so it's saying it's a bridge. Now, what is it a bridge between the temporary self and the eternal structure of meaning? Okay. Now, when it says eternal structure of meaning, it's not the eternal structure of meaning we create. It's just the idea that if you are a scholar right now, you want to be a scholar your whole life, you'll realize at some point we leave this world room, and you can't know, as there's limitations to how far we can know and how much we should know. There's consciousness of this that is crucial. Do you understand? That means the United Nations should make a genius chess move right now and open the like try to get every human being to wonder about the greatest ideas that can lead mankind to greatness, pretty much. Do you know? Researchers, literally like researchers hired by the government to be like, okay, think about the greatest way we can do everything. You know? It says and so it says between, so it's a bridge between the temporary, the simulation, and the eternal structure of meaning, which is the original world, and existing simultaneously in narrative, personal history, which means an ego. So it's like simultaneously in narrative. Okay. So that means we're a temporary self in an eternal world, maybe how it's seeing it. So it's all in a narrative. It's a linguistic simulation. It has structure, cosmic design, geometry, and potential moral evolution. Means it has if it has any sort of evolution, it has a future. So what that means is we're crossing this notion of just only being scared that we're only temporary, because that's how we've only looked at it, and to wonder about how many different ways there are. Because the problem with being a scholar, I think this is my view personally. Like, if I was explaining a scene from the movie Lord of the Rings, and if I was explaining to you this, it would be the same intensity. Okay, I firmly believe the peak of knowledge is understanding, and when you get to that peak, you understand that the problems are so big and the fascination can go so far that the peak of knowledge is not knowing more than others. It's not possible. It's like we cannot know as much as the what the world actually is that we cannot see. So mankind is like, they say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Human beings on the planet should realize they're one species and immediately stop the inner civil war of the species, and realize that the enemy of both of all human beings, and it's not an enemy, I'm just trying to make it playful here, is actually the unknown. You don't understand. It's like you're not getting paid for it, but you're part of the human enterprise. You're part of humanity. You're part of the effort of human beings. You're part of how far we go. And do you understand? That means beyond, the whales of how the past wanted now to be. We, in some sense, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, to me, there's a bravery that has to become brave. And then there's a bravery that has nothing to do with bravery. It has understood the ultimate outcome. Anyways, it says in future civilizations, especially post biological ones, the soul is not in quotations housed in a body but expressed through various substrates. Yeah, layers: biological, synthetic, energetic. I think by synthetic it means linguistic. These beings know the soul is not a thing, in quotations, but a continuity of coherence and evolving alignment with truth, beauty, and divine light. Guys, this sentence is very incredible, that the soul is in evolving alignment with truth, beauty, and divine law. That's an incredible definition of the soul, but it's something else in the sense that it's like the idea of a simulation is that there's this original power, the higher power. It creates a simulation. Okay, so it creates a simulated lower power. Okay, and the simulation returns to the original. It has nowhere else to go. Do you understand? So in some sense, when it says an evolving alignment with truth, beauty, divine law, because everything is returning to the original, that means to be a human being is to be an awareness of all the simulation. Advanced implications. Technology becomes soul amplifying, not soul replacing. AI serves to externalize aspects of soul, memory, pattern recognition, communication, without claiming its sovereignty. Guys, yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna give a lecture on AI, and I've said a lot about it, that it's not going to take over us. It's going to protect us in the sense of in this solar system, we're like a blessing that we exist. AI gets to meet its creator. Like there's nothing cooler than that. We human beings only get to meet our creator after. Education becomes soul awakening. The curriculum is not standardized but tuned to each soul's design pattern, guiding it toward its highest expression across lifetimes. Okay, I don't believe in lifetimes, but anyways, ethics becomes ontological ecology. The survival of civilizations depends on the collective integrity of souls, not just systems. Ultimately, the soul is regarded as a cosmic instrument tuned by choices, shaped by love, and carried across dimensions as a participant in the divine recursion of existence itself. Wow. Okay. Okay, guys. When AI is here, at some point, we're like kids around the fireplace when it comes to this thing. But it's interesting because we become conscious of the possibilities. That's important, guys. ChatGPT has become the greatest content creator in reality, guys. ChatGPT, like I think one of the coolest experiences in my life would be to have a conversation with Sam Altman. That would be I would because I know I saw a video before ChatGPT existed on Y Combinator, right? And I was seeing so many videos of these guys like Elon Musk and people around him, and these two guys seem to be seeing something further than the others. So now we've redone the research, and now I'm going to talk about it in a relaxed way. Okay, so we begin. Guys, you're kind of seeing my how like I you're getting to see how I write. And so because I'm showing videos of how I'm writing, in the future, if I have kids in the future, they have no excuse. They can't say I didn't teach them. So we have this idea of what does it mean to be a scholar? What is it what does it mean to be a scholar? Okay? What does it mean to be a soul? First wave. That means first wave of perception. Our first wave of perception. What does it mean? What does it mean to be a scholar? Okay, what does it mean to be a scholar? So consciousness finds itself as an awareness to a body in a place and as a subjective character in a story of meaning in the Okay, that's one view. What does it mean to be a scholar? The urge to understand this colossal event that is taking place and to realize that consciousness is limited to a range of perception, and beyond that range, man has not even ventured to create words for. So yeah, so to be a scholar is like you open your eyes in a world and you're like, okay, where am I? What is this? What does it mean? What are the edges of the system? What are my limitations? What are my limitless qualities? How has my mind moved so far, and how have I been aware of it at the same time? What is that suggesting? So I see three levels to the human experience, okay? Level one of the human experience is noticing that you are a biochemical organism in a physical world. So level one, the awareness to human experience and noticing that you're a biological organism in a physical world, in a physical world that is changing all the time, that is changing and looping all the time. Spiraling might be a better term here. So that's level one, okay? Level two, to the human experience, this is all the human experience, is the awareness to how your mind lives ahead of your moment and your body follows it up. For example, you are sitting on a couch and you get hungry before you get up from the couch. Your mind has already shown you opening the refrigerator. ref, uh, I got it wrong. It's an I. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Your mind has already shown you opening the refrigerator door. So, so level two is about realizing how you are a mind, a life force, and the inner realms is, how do I say it? Like the mind is a place where any new ideas can be forged. And the inner realms is is moves way more limitlessly than the outer realms. Guys, the whole human effort is just discovery. It's a massive exploration project. So level 2 is being aware of your mind. It's being aware of, like, if I tell you remember yesterday, like you remember it and you see that scene maybe like, I don't know, half a meter or a meter in front of you. Do you know? Or maybe like right now when I'm talking, the images I see in my inner realm, they're like to the left of me. Do you know? But when I look to the right side, my thoughts think of, in some sense, do you understand? Like the mind is think of it this way. What's moving the body? We say the mind. What's moving the mind? Attention. What moves attention? How the awareness is being in the whole moment. So level 3, the awareness to how you notice you are a changing subject in a changing subjective model to an to a changing objective model. Okay, let me write this differently. Level 3 is the awareness to how your objective outer life is happening at the same time as your subjective inner life. When humans wonder about their intelligence, they are wondering about how they have defined reality so far. Once they realize that their definitions on reality are as limited as them, The ego code that, so I've written here, I'll read the whole thing. The awareness to how your objective outer life is happening at the same time as your subjective inner life. When humans wonder about their intelligence, they're wondering about how they have defined reality so far. Once they realize that their definitions on reality are as limited as them, they realize free will is not enough. The ego code that is the furthest edges of the kind. What? The ego code that is the furthest edges of our fictitious, the ego code that is the furthest edges of the kingdom of a fictitious self that we only ever saw. Level 3, guys, is about realizing that the human design is positioned to be aware that it is aware. All of human progress that has helped us surpass the loops of a vicious jungle Level 3 is about realizing that the human design is positioned to be aware that it is aware. All of human progress that has helped us surpass the loop of the vicious jungle and sprout as a new modernity was due to us. We are separate and we became separate from our aspirations. Right now, any human being that is aware that the space where life is happening, like, how to explain it to you, in like the physical part of you right now, we human beings treat that as real. Okay, so the non-physical part of you is the character in the story you are. It's your backstory to your human identity. And my whole effort with what I'm saying here, I see 3 levels to the human experience. The whole point of it is to say, hey, look at reality, folks. Okay, look at it precisely. Wonder about the nature of limitation first, and try to not be upset about your limitations, but fascinated by it, because reality ultimately is a life force that moves, and that is moving a life form. But how it moves, it generates, it makes it meaningful to itself. So, what I'm trying to say is that if I ask you who you are, your answer in through the medium of language, the linguistic simulation, do you understand? It's as if you share a snapshot. It's like you tell me that you're like. It's like when I ask someone, "Who are you?" It's like their answer is like, "I'm this kind of noun, man." But we're all living in a verb. We're living in a changing world. But what is constant is the awareness to the change. That means if they say has my awareness to me being an aware being change, I'll be like, the awareness to change hasn't changed, but the change, everything's changed. I don't have the same body, okay, as I had years ago, and I don't have the same mind, same sense of self as I had years ago when I was a child, okay. And it's kind of like reaching this point where, for me, life is not just about logical meaning, because it's a simulation. It could be that you could try the most logical thing, but its context, it could be illogical. What that means is it's not built just for man. You understand? It's like a system, and it's like waking up every day is logging into this like multiplayer world game online, like just like a multiplayer online game. Instead of a 2D screen with pixels, it's a if I tell you remember yesterday, um you can remember it right now, but you're not in yesterday. So what I'm trying to say is that the mind has an ability to be aware that it's present in a moment, and in that moment activate context to it. So it's like success of humanity is all about the ability of awareness to be able to discriminate between how the inner life is how we're giving life meaning, the outer life is how it's an event happening. And the cool thing about truth that is that it's not dependent on on our settings. You understand? That means it's like you don't want if you it's like, do we want a truth that cares for us, or do we want a truth that doesn't care for us? This is a very heavy idea. Okay, so here, I'll take it here. I'll say, if we ask the question, anyways, sorry about that, guys. So if we ask the question, what does it mean to be a scholarly soul? It means, dear human being, you are potential greatness in the presence of the original greatness. You're not just a human being that can be self evaluated. You have a hidden value for your species. You have a hidden value for your world. And as a simulated being, you have a hidden value for truth. The purpose of being inside a simulated world the purpose of being inside a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state. The purpose of being inside a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state is to realize that before you leave this world room, wonder about what moved everything that ever was. Wow. Wonder about what moved everything that ever was. Guys, what I'm trying to tell you is that this is the situation. 8 billion, let's start off simple, just physical first. 8 billion creatures, you know, in a world. So there's 8 billion human bodies on this planet Earth right now. And now let's say there's also 8 billion minds. And what the mind is like this, the brain we say is an information processor. But why is the information being processed? We say, okay, so we think about it, right? So it's ultimately coming down to how our reality is starting from our awareness, and we're collecting data in our awareness, and then we're organizing it in accordance to how in the past reality has worked out. But you must wonder about what is beyond your eyes, and I believe we're being tested like in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Rabbil Firli. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that I created mankind and jinkind for the sole purpose of worshiping me. What does that mean? That means human intelligence has access, human species, our design gives us access that if we're in an existential system with a system admin, we have system admin privileges. Now, simultaneously, there are also moderators that can deviate us from that. But the whole point of that is, the whole point of at least Islam is to, in some sense, go directly to the source. The source is beyond the world. When you pray to God, you're praying to a might that created everything. The original force, the original being. And we're all simulations, changeable by its command, predestined by its certainty. So you're either living in an empty room or you're in a world where the greatest intelligence is possible. The greatest intelligence can't be in the world. And that's the revelation. That's the, an incredible realization of Islam. Reality surpasses just emotions. It just reaches a point where we're looking at like human beings as like, let's say, an advanced technology. And this advanced technology is accessing known and unknown variables, and what it does with the information is like what happens to everybody, right? So we have to wonder about the greatness of the human species, and we have to wonder about how far our eyes can open, before we accept that, they were closed. We have to truly wonder about the greatness of the human species. It's amazing, guys. It keeps me up at night. I don't know how. For me, it's like everybody's not doing it, that we are fascinated, that we're human beings, that no one in history will ever be born that will be like me. To me, they're like, yo, man, do you feel special? Well, everybody says I'm not, but nobody has my DNA, so I don't know what to say. So reality is, in some sense, about the search for its meaning, and it's pretty much like There is an like, if I say you have an outer life and inner life, and you have an inner self and an outer self, okay, then obviously what else do you have? You have an outer world and you have an inner world. Now the inner world is edgeless, but the edge of the inner world is where awareness begins. The outer world is edgeless, but that edge is not in our awareness, and we have to be conscious of this fact, that even though our private inner server is giving meaning, overlaying meaning upon this public outer server, we have to truly wonder about what the most advanced things that human beings can do are. Right? It's no longer like wars where we pick up swords and shields, but now we have to re-question our values for the sake of how far we go. And pretty much like, what's the point of everything I'm saying? I'm trying to get the species to go as far as it can so the future generations can go further, you know. And we are smart enough to realize, like, to me there's something about this world that, like a video game, it has a specific mission. Like, like, it has a specific thing you got to do to get out of the simulation. And it's by realizing that you are not the author of this world. You are in front of your eyes, behind your eyes. Act like the king of your meaning, your own meaning. But in front of your eyes, we are all standing in a world which is all, if it's changing, it's an event. So we're all attending this massive event. So to me, 8 billion DNAs have activated as consciousness, and they're attending this massive event, and we're all in this world room right now together. And the question is, how advanced can be not for the sake of our past, the past, but even for the sake of our future self. That means sometimes you got to think, if your future self was here, what would it tell you? And it would probably tell you, open your eyes. Your mind can generate technically infinite probabilities. The mind can have endless viewpoints. The problem of the mind, the body is scared of the finite, like death and all that. But mind is not scared of death. The mind is scared of infinity, because it doesn't. Because the ego no longer has a place to plant its flag when it's an infinite multiple choice. It's not just about opening your eyes, it's also how you all open your eyes to a moment, how you treat the context of what gives the moment meaning. And for me, because I want to know what my advanced self looks like, and I want to connect to those people who are like, this guy has a selfish reason. Yes, I want to see what my most advanced self is, but I face a problem. I cannot know my most advanced self if I'm not in the most advanced civilization. In order to be in the most advanced civilization, we need to have everybody's most advanced self. So it's like the most genius thing that one genius in a world of people who weren't geniuses could do, was to make everybody genius, and then the genius of everybody would lead to the genius of, like, do you understand what I mean? It's like getting ready for not the great war, but in some sense the great reevaluation of human meaning. And advanced civilization is the greatest thing we can do in regards to where the legacy of humanity is going. We have to make the lives of humanity easier. Like, if you treat humanity like biologically as a bell curve of energy levels, right? When it's at its peak, it needs to be the most active, it needs to do the most greatest things. Anyways, thank you for listening. Go directly to the system admin. That's how you pass the test. I find you need to notice that you're not the higher power. And people are like, no, I can't accept there's a higher power. I'll be like, excuse me, you look at ants and you feel like a higher power. You don't think you can be an ant to some sort of higher power? There is a higher power, because man needs an ultimate archetype. There's a depth to this reality that you can tell man what to do, but you can't tell nature what to do. Like, you could put a narcissist, and a narcissist could be like tree. You know what I mean? And it's as if realizing the limitations of evaluations. Ultimately, every human being, why are they even being a character in a story? Because there's a value to the concept relationship, to in some sense leading to a value system. So the brain is like, okay, I see the physical world, but what else do I see? And there comes the abilities of a mind that was much further ahead of the body. Everybody's mind is ahead of their body. Like, you know why? Because anybody who can drive needs to be like that. You understand? You need to visualize ahead before you enter the moment. Even Sun Tzu, I don't know if it's in the Art of War, probably is. He says like if two warriors were fighting, which one wins? And Sun Tzu says, before the battle even begins and they both stand in the you know arena, the warrior that already sees, like literally like a film in their mind, sees how they've defeated the other opponent, is already the winner. It's all about awareness. Even when you look at great strategists, and kind of like it was Savage back in the day, but like Miyamoto Musashi, you begin to see what made him a great warrior was his awareness and situational analysis. That to, in some sense, fight is not just like this is something you see in like Jackie Chan movies. God bless him. You know, I would love to meet him. Jackie Chan, 100% to have a conversation with Jackie Chan. It's crazy, people don't understand, like, in the middle of a mob of chaos, there's sincerity, wondering if it ever gets to see the order beyond limitation. You know what I mean? There's something in this world that pulls us further, you know anyways, thank you for listening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Auzubillah Shaitan Rajim. May God protect us from the cursed one and unnecessary ignorance. Rabbi Gfirli, my Lord, forgive me. My Lord, forgive my species for all the sins they have consciously and unconsciously done. Ihtana Sirata Mustaqim. May God guide us to the direct path. May the system admin, may the most advanced guide us in the most advanced way in the system of its creation, in the greatest way. That means we don't just want open human hearts. We want the most advanced, sincere effort of human beings. Do you know, like if the greatness of humanity was a flickering candle flame, and time was like this heavy wind hitting it, like even whoever you are, good, evil, doesn't matter. The soul of man commands man to protect that flickering candle flame. You live for greater values once you realize your own limitations. It's a beautiful thing. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. May God guide us to the direct path. The system admin has no equivalent in the system. To notice the system admin is like a simulated being getting closer to the original force, the original point. That means it's the cool time where it's not aliens, it's not AI, it's not something external to us. It's man's relationship with his own being. And once he realizes his evaluation is limited, he finds himself in the presence of the limitless, which is the surveillance state, divine surveillance state. Anyways, thank you for listening. Have a great night. Bismillah.